Only one thing counts in this life. Get them to sign on the line which is dotted. A, B, C. A, always be B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
If we think about the Glengarry-Glen Ross model, it is about relationships, but it's about relationships that force people to buy something based on guilt or on fear or being scared of missing something. And the modern version of that is the relationship salesperson. And the relationship salesperson has really high EQ. Everybody likes her. Everybody thinks she's great, a great person. It's a really important part of what we do. And they have great relationship skills. The problem is, though, that the buyer wants more than that.